Good morning and welcome to KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Thank you all for joining us. Our great friend Dave Pezzo with us, and we're just going to take a look at the upcoming year coming up. And now that the Democrats have been sworn in, Dave, are you excited about the impact of divided government once again having on the American economy? Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I was disappointed at some of the things that didn't get done with a non-divided government. But at the same time, things like tax reform were a huge item that clearly wouldn't have gotten done with a Democratic Congress. So I know everybody wants to throw the former Republican leadership under the bus, but the reality, and I do because they'd lost the House, but at the same time, that is a huge piece of legislation that will be with us for a very long time, Kevin, and continue to be a great driver to the economy.
Yeah, let's take a look at the Republican Congress, though. What did they really get accomplished?
That in and of itself is pretty big, and nobody expected it, right? Because you really have struggled to get those last few votes in there. I mean, we saw how contentious, for example, it was for a basically a Boy Scout nominee,
right?
With that both parties unanimously approved as a federal, at the next level, right? So maybe not unanimous, but very high, and all that is really contentious because the fight is on. It's really one of those things. So given how divided it is politically out there, Kevin, I think that they did do a good job. That by itself is a big piece of legislation. My huge disappointment, of course, and I'm sure our listeners share that, is that immigration should have been nailed, but that should have been nailed with the Democrats. Everybody wants a political football, apparently, because we're still tossing that one around.
And we will, no matter what people say or do. Let's take a look at the Treasure Valley. Last week there was an article in the paper, more apartments coming to Meridian, to other places. Is this a good thing to have more apartments? You have a lot of people that our great friend Tea Party Bob, not really fond of affordable housing, but look, we were all there.
Yeah.
Some of us are still there or could be there again.
Yeah, you have a valid point. I mean, we all started there, right? We started in a dumpy. I think my first apartment, I was 17 years old, and it was no joke. It was $125 a month. You can imagine how.
That's back when 125 was something, though.
Well, it was
right.
Back a ways. You're right, but let's just say they did not have the amenities they do today. There was no clubhouse, right? It's a different world out there, and it's a much more abundant world than we've ever experienced, and so even people starting off at a different level. I understand what Tea Party Bob's talking about, though. It creates a lot of density, an awful lot of traffic in a small area. So it is a problem. It clearly is a traffic problem. And it means it's going to slow down everything everywhere because the arteries aren't just going to fill up. You have all those stoplights that are to get out of an apartment complex with hundreds of people in it.
Right. And again, we see that, though, in developed areas. I mean, you're a big fan of Seattle. It's funny, the New York Times, again, a couple weeks ago had this article. They're worried about New York City becoming a giant Seattle. And it seems to be affordable housing is just not a crisis here in the Treasure Valley, but it is across the country. What gives with that?
Yeah, it's so funny. Not funny. It's really tragic and weird to me that the people that proclaim how they're just so kind-hearted and those evil, horrible people in flyover country that, are bigots or whatever you want to tag a name to, they could care less about the homeless problem they have there. They absolutely don't solve it. And you think of all the homeless problems out there, comparing to, say, what the Boise Rescue Mission does here in town. They don't have anything like that, Kevin, with all of their big-heartedness. With all their big-heartedness, they have a huge housing problem for affordable housing. It's just an absolutely astronomical problem.
Right.
They don't really care. They just make noises about caring. But what really cares is when we allow the market forces to solve these problems, meaning we do allow apartment complexes to go up that maybe are going to be a little on the low end of things. You may hear your neighbor, like we all did growing up, right? You may hear some noise. Those are the types of things that keep those costs down and allow people to be in that area. And we're seeing, I talked about this a lot out in Star and Caldwell, Nampa. They've got so many new
the places where you hang out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Caldwell. And anyway, go out that way, and you're seeing a lot of, we used to call it track housing, right? But it's lower dollar housing where people can get a start, and with interest rates still very low, Kevin, if you save up a few bucks, and by golly, you got to save up a few bucks. It's not my fault you aren't responsible enough to put a down payment together, and then you can have a payment that's lower than rent. That's the amazing part of where we're at right now.
Now, you were talking earlier, we were, going back and forth with the guys from Team about how to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Well, give us your Petso tip here on this, the Dave Petso way.
Okay, are you ready? It's because it's beyond easy.
We're writing it down.
You start young, meaning you start as soon as you're done with college. You start even earlier if you can, and you put a few bucks away, and you keep it there. You don't stop. That's it. I'm going to give you an example.
Where, in the savings
account?
account?
Sitting here enjoying a cup of coffee, which, of course, being fiscally responsible, I'm actually at the expense of the radio station.
We don't charge you for that, by the way.
You do not.
Right.
And I do not stop at Starbucks and Dutch Bros and all that stuff. And that's a habit, right? When I couldn't afford a cup of coffee, honestly, when I moved here. I really couldn't. And so it's one of those things that you just kind of have those habits. But let me tell you this. A cup of coffee a day for 40 years is $1.2 million. Well, it's $5 a day.
Who has 42 years? I want the get rich quick scheme.
I know that is exactly the problem, isn't it? People will not. We were talking about that too. It's such an incredible thing to think about. People don't think generationally. They don't think long term. They don't think about educating their kids. They say that, they pay lip service, but they don't do it. And nobody sits down and says, you know what? I'm going to go buy a boat, and my kids aren't going to go to college. I don't care if my kids go to college. Nobody says that. But if you don't make plans, how are you going to get your kid to go to college? You got your 401k? You can't do that.
You get your boat, and they pay for their own college.
And you know what? And some families, honestly, that is the discussion. I am not going to pay for a college education. And that's okay, too. But what I'm saying is for people that pretend that they want to help their kids and don't, just quit living in the moment and spending money ruthlessly. It's not that hard. It really, when you think about that, Kevin, can you imagine that? A cup of coffee a day, and it's worth $1.2 million in 40 years. By the way, that's not handpicking the best mutual fund or the best money manager. It's not Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. It's the broad stock market, for crying out loud. It's all
I don't
the ups
know
and
about
downs.
that. The stock market in December didn't seem like your friend.
That includes December.
All right.
And much worse in the past.
More with Dave Petso coming up. The Petso Center, Petso Financial. Saturdays, 8 to 10, Money Matters here on KIDO Talk Radio. But, one of my favorite Petsoisms has to be making a luxury a necessity. Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about the coffee business, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere we go, it used to be we just had churches and gyms, but now we have churches, gyms, dentists, probably soon to be hospitals, and definitely coffee on every corner.
We do.
And you have people, this is their thing. They go in, they'll pay $5-6, they'll stay there all day, they'll be on their laptop. What do you make of just the coffee business? I mean, you have people that are putting up coffee places all over the place, and it's kind of a nouveau chic kind of thing. Hey, I got my such and such.
Well, yeah, and you think about that. You think about what Dutch Brothers does, and they get in the news here locally. What Starbucks did. I missed Starbucks because it's a cup of coffee. How big a deal can that be, right? And, of course, became a global, huge global company. And, again, I don't understand the paying that much. I guess I've always been, Kevin, when necessity is you cannot afford, habits are formed very quickly. If you can't afford to go out and grab a beer, you can't do it. You just can't do it. And I wasn't alone in starting here in Boise in the early 80s. It was a very difficult time with high interest rates. So starting off and doing that kind of thing builds habits. And so I really encourage people not to get into that downward spin where you spend more than is necessary. I'm not saying don't have experiences, don't have fun, don't go to the park and do all kinds of things, and you don't have to be ridiculous. But again, $5 a day, $150 a month for 40 years is a whole lot of money.
Indeed, I just go back to the whole creating the experience, and the coffee business fascinates me.
Yep.
Imagine what, in another favorite business of mine, the pizza business. But you imagine the markup on those things.
It's huge. But I would never start a pizza place. I mean, that's just because how hard is it? It's dough. You bake it and it's done. I mean, the next place pops up and you're not trendy anymore. That's a tough business, that restaurant business. But at the same time, you're quite right. The markup is pretty good. I mean, if Papa Murphy's can drag a pizza out of there for what, $8 or $9, and that you must be, and they do well, coast to coast.
Well, Papa Murphy's is another one that I don't understand. They don't even cook the pizza for you.
No.
It's brilliant. But
It is brilliant.
They don't even cook the pizza for you.
Yeah.
Dave Petzo joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So, we've been just talking about businesses and such. As we, again, the Democrats getting their footing in Congress, the president holding fast on a few things. How would you grade the first 2 years of the Trump presidency?
Yeah, that's
Boy,
a tough one.
That doesn't sound like a quick A+, Professor.
No. I'm going to give him an A+ for going into D.C. and destroying the Republican and Democratic Party. I'm going to give the press a disgusted, you've got to be kidding me, because they're so dishonest and so political now that the average person doesn't understand how amazing the deregulation, the idea that we've gone from 2% growth to 3%. This late in the cycle has never occurred before, and everybody said he couldn't do it, that it wasn't going to happen. You and I remember us talking about, you get out of the way, you get government out of the way, and you watch the animal spirits come. And now we're seeing that with the tax cuts and all that. So the answer is, I think he's done a good job. I don't like his messaging. I understand that he's a guy that's from New York that likes to fight. He gets in there. But to me, he just makes so much noise sometimes that is just out of the way, or a comment like the other day when he said he was doing a great press conference. I thought really good. Why are we in Syria? Bam. Why are we there in the first place? Why are we leaving? Why were we there? Why are we here? I mean, these are things. The Iranian deal Iran is, all of these things that he's done geopolitically have been phenomenal. The idea that we're open up with North Korea, all of that. But then he turns around and says, I would have been a great general. Why does he do that? It was an amazing, just self-grandizing, I don't think is good for his messaging.
More coming up with our great friend Dave Petzo. Remember, you can catch him at the Petzo Center, Petzo Financial, Facebook and Twitter. You're listening to Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. And welcome back. Dave Petzo's with us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. KIDOTalkRadio.com. So what grade would you give him, the president? If you missed it, we asked you. I say
I would agree.
A++.
I would give him an A. I would definitely give him an A.
I thought you were self-aggrandizing.
I don't like his
against
messaging.
The curve or something like that.
I don't like the messaging, and I think he would have gotten even further, and that's why I'm going to take a little away. What he's done is fantastic, and I love that. But I just think that the messaging, if he would have toned it down, he could be driving a dagger through the Democrats' hearts, and the Democrats have moved so far left now. It's not the Democratic Party that anybody knows. This is a new progressive socialist, to have government do everything, nanny state type of. Anyway, economic destroyer. That's what the Democratic Party is now, and they're obstructionists. They don't want anything to be successful. I believe that there would have been a movement if Trump wouldn't be so Trump-like in his messaging. I believe that he could have brought so much more of the middle America away from the Democratic Party that, again, I have to blame him partly for this midterm as well, not just the Republican leadership, but also Donald Trump. I don't know how you lose Michigan.
Wow. That's, Michigan. I mean, Michigan's been tough, though, for years.
Well, it has, but they
Right.
have also they lost their own state house there, too. That's a big shift for them.
Well, you bring up a good point because for years the Republicans have had the ground game, the state houses, the governors. Mm-hmm. Maybe, these are cyclical. And remember, you go back to the midterms, all the Republicans resigning or retiring and
that's
everything
true
else.
too, Kevin.
Historic trends, that
Yep.
sort of thing. But, to your point, the president is very polarizing, and as much as he fires up his base, he fires up the libs.
Right. I like that he fires up the bait. I like that he's different. But I think that a slightly toned down would have brought more people to go, I like this change, instead of cringing. Sometimes with every press conference, there's things that are said, and you just cringe, even though I like what he's doing. And I go, why did he have to say that?
Well, we could say that about a lot of things, though, right?
Well, we could.
Right.
But most of the time, if you're listening to Obama, he never said anything. He'd talk for an hour and didn't say anything. And with Trump, he says a little too much.
Sure.
Anything that goes through his head, just it comes out.
More coming up with Dave Petzo. First, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. Back again with our great friend Dave Petzo here. So we've talked a little bit about the president. Brad Little is sworn in. You're close with Brad Little. You guys hang out, just like you hang out with Warren Buffett and I was going to say Steve Jobs, but no. Bill Gates, probably.
Yeah, well,
Paul Allen, God
on my
rest his
frequent
soul,
trips
yeah.
to see my grandkids, I swing by.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we take a look at the Brad Little administration. What do you make of it?
I like the fresh look. I have to tell you, when I ask Brad Little a very simple question, I just happened to be serving with him at the rescue mission banquet over Christmas, and just a simple question of what he was doing in the transition. And they're looking at everything, Kevin, and I really appreciated that. They're looking at everything. It's not automatic that everybody gets to keep their job. I really get the impression from Brad Little that he is his own man, and he is not Butch Part 2, and he's going to look at everything and try to make his mark. You know what? He has been successful in life. He's successful in business. It's successful in politics, and he's reached the job he wanted, and he's late in life. I think he wants to make a difference. I think he really does, and I think he's going to work hard and looking at everything. So I like what I hear and what I see so far.
Right. You take a look at some of the challenges. Obviously, we're calling on the politicians. First thing they should do, repeal the grocery tax. You've got the $60 million shortfall. How does that happen? You ever had a $60 million shortfall at Petzo Enterprises?
No, we have not.
And that's easy for us to say, but I mean, $60 million. Well,
serious.
We thought more revenue was coming in. Whoops.
Yep. Well, that's government and that's projections. You know what I mean? Everything is always perfect and it's going to be on budget, right? It's kind of like the road construction. You get deals, say, oh, this is going to cost us $1 billion to put a tunnel here, and $5 billion later, they're not done. It's very typical and unfortunate because that's how you lie your way into getting taxpayers to approve certain things. Like, we're going to bump this particular thing up, we're going to bump that thing up, just because we want to pay for the roads or we want to do this, instead of looking for cost-cutting ideas.
Right.
Very typical.
Right. But, there's a lot of challenges with the growth here in the gem state. You think to yourself, well, where are they going to come up with $60 million?
You know what, Kevin? There are a lot of challenges, and we need the roads, we need the infrastructure, and I'm hopeful that we're going to have something like, a bond issue of some kind, because we do need it. And if it needs to be funded with a nickel more or dime more of gas tax, then so be it.
Wait a minute. Mark this down, everyone. This date in history, this time, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Dave Petzo is advocating for tax increase. Have you become a tax and spender?
No, I have not. But I think that we have an issue in Idaho with how many miles per people out there, and we can do it. I think what we need to do it is whether it's vehicle registration, because again, you can't tax the electric cars, and that's where we're running into a little bit of trouble here, because cars are much more fuel efficient than they used to be, or they don't use gas at all, and then you can't collect any gas tax. So we have to come up with some innovation in order to pay for the roads down the road, and we need them.
Well,
you're right. We have issues with growth here in the Gem State.
But I disagree with you. Shocker. Remember,
you never disagree with me.
It was a couple years ago, and I remember Governor Otter, now former Governor Otter, coming on the program. You guys must talk a lot, because it was the same aspect that he said, the same spiel where he said, I got my big pickup and, the Prius guy there, and I got to pay just as much. And I'm going, well, yeah, you raised the gas tax already. That was, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so where did all that money go?
No, I agree. It's probably in the roads, but at the same time, I also don't, and I understand locals need to make these decisions, but I'm always shaking my head. I drive down on Americana to work every day, and this is an all summer long project, okay, and it's for a bike lane that is less than a quarter of a mile long. And it's just unbelievable to me, because you're sitting there going, well, we need a north-south corridor. Yes, we've needed it for 30 years, and yet we're going to build a bike lane on Americana. Widen the flippin' sidewalk if you need to. But my point is,
that sounds more like Mayor Beater to me.
Well, it is, but where'd the money come from?
Better be careful. Mayor Beater probably listens. He doesn't like it, but he probably listens. His ears are burning. Last time I saw Mayor Beater, his ears were burning when he was looking at me.
I'm very happy to say that this nonsense of putting bike lanes down Main Street is over. I'm glad that we don't have to do a stupid trolley downtown, and I don't understand why we have bike lane on Americana when we need so many projects of widening Shinden Road, all those things. I know it's a state highway, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I get it. But still, at the same time, why are we doing those things when we have entire crews all summer long? It's limited time when we can do these projects. These are things that you do when we're not growing so fast that we are blowing out all the roads we're on.
Exactly. But tax and spender, Petzo.
We need better roads.
More coming up with Dave Petzo, Kevin Miller in the morning, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And we appreciate you joining us here, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Dave Petzo with us. You have such a history with the station. What's your favorite KIDO story? I would say KIDO Talk Radio, but KIDO Radio, obviously you had such a great relationship with John and Chris. You have such a vibrant love for this station. You have any favorite memories?
I have lots of them. They all roll around people. I mean,
you remember a much younger Ray Amaya?
I do remember a much younger.
Right.
I'm happier. He's getting to be a bit of a curmudgeon guy.
Well, he's in good company, because I'd say the same for both of us.
I know, we are. But it was Kevin. I got to say, back in those days, and I have some great memories with you as well. But it's because I've been doing this for like 9 years or something.
Exactly.
Right? So those things kind of come and go. But obviously, I was very close with John Duane and Chris Kelly, and back in those days with Ray and Dinah Jewell, and there was a big staff, and there was a lot. It was just
there's a big staff.
There were marching bands in the studio.
Big staff now. Me and Ray. I know. You got a synthesizer. You don't need a marching band.
I know. And this equipment is the same equipment that was there 30 years ago. Right.
We are very diligent with the resources.
Very fiscally responsible
that our shareholders give us.
Exactly. But it's you've heard so many of these stories, but I mean, it's just the idea that day in and day out you had this barrage of people coming in, and from the community, whether it was coming in and having somebody sing "Happy Birthday" to the mayor or to the it was just fun, and so all those together. But the Steelhead fishing trips were really something, because we build them up and tell the story. That's when I really learned so much about radio. Was your craft is just amazing, how you build stories around people and stuff. For example, who cares about the postmaster? But John Tuso, the former postmaster, was in almost every week and telling stories. And so it's just one of those things that you create even out of non-news or fun or personalities, creating that messaging. And we would talk about it for 2 weeks. We were going to go steelhead fishing and talk about it for a week afterwards. Those were the days when you just kind of...
Is that like before the internet and before cable? And,
it kind of sort of was, yeah.
Right.
A
different
bit.
time in America.
It was a different
But a
time.
sense of community.
And a real sense of and how to communicate with people and enjoy and have fun with other peoples. It was a different time.
What do you say to people that just move in here?
Move to
I mean,
Boise?
are you one of these ambassadors? And do you, since you hang in Boise,
Yeah.
the bougie Boise folks, the commoners we live
I do.
out. And,
I kind of am an ambassador because I like people, but
right. I mean, your rooftop parties and that sort of
oh
thing.
yeah, the rooftop parties. Yes,
right.
Yes,
But I mean,
yes.
what do you say to people that we have a lot of folks that have moved in particularly from California? They may not take issue with me. All I ask is that they change their license plates.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair, Kevin.
But what do you say to people that are, a kind of a behind the scenes, a Cliff Notes version when they're trying to figure out what to expect when they move here? What do you say to new people?
I say that Boise is nice. The people here are special. That's different than anywhere else you will go because the people truly are nice. I'm afraid we're going to lose that a little bit as people come in and try to change this because they want to be more progressive or what have you, instead of actually just nice. And the people are nice here. But I do sense that's changing, particularly in the North End, and I don't like that. I think that's a shame because I find that progressives are very exclusionary. They do not like people with differing viewpoints, whether they're accepted or not. The progressives don't like discussion. They don't like to have people that don't agree that government is the best way. I like the people of Idaho, and so when people come in, I tell them that you're going to find that this is the greatest group of people on the planet, and I mean it. They are. They're so nice. People still nod at each other and smile on the green belt, and when you smile at a pretty lady, she doesn't think you're trying to do anything. It's just they're just nice.
Well, it depends on your age. When you're my age and stuff, you smile, you're very non-threatening.
That's true. When you're old like me, you're right. I didn't think about it that way, but you're probably right.
Giving a lot of thought here, Dave. But or when you're at the gas station and some guy will nod to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. Or a clerk is actually happy you came in the store instead of disrupting them. It's a nice place.
But doesn't it spoil you and you're an international traveler? I mean, you go to exotic locations like Reno and Seattle and all those fancy places, Chicago and such.
Yep.
I found that when I travel, it spoils me because, and look, I'm much more of an introvert than you are. I'm much more.
Just a little bit.
Right. We travel in the same circle, but you're a little bit more gregarious than I am.
Yes.
So for me, I'll go out of my way to talk to people and they look at me like I'm a nut.
That's true.
It's crazy. It really, you'll find that once you've lived here for a while.
Yeah, you do. And it is different. It is very different when you travel. People are much more in a hurry, and when you get somebody waiting on you, it's here you go, you're welcome, and they're gone. But they're not engaging. They don't take the time to engage. And I think in Idaho they actually do stop and engage. They still do.
Right.
But particularly, Kevin, we're going to notice that difference over time because when you go up to Crouch or something and Garden Valley, Lowman, whatever, and you stop by the local tavern or the restaurant there, whatever it is, and the people there are happy to sit down and have a conversation with you, much more than Boise. There's a difference. I think it's when you get crowded, you're around a lot of people, there's a lot of hubbub. I think people do change a little bit. So I am concerned with that long term with Boise. Plus, with all the foreigners coming in, meaning Californians,
sure,
et cetera, big city folk, they're not used to being this nice. And so I'm concerned, just like you. My Boise's not here anymore, but it's still the best place there is.
Right, but we would call that the Treasure Valley.
The Treasure Valley. I'm sorry.
Well, and we go to the growth, though.
You are a little sensitive about this, the greater Boise area, but it's not. It's like, Treasure Valley.
The Treasure Valley
I'm going to work
thing.
on my vocabulary.
It used to really, it's funny, people would say, well, out there. Well, if you're living out there, it's not out there.
No.
And
It's really hard to get out there through all the traffic because there's so many people out there, right?
exactly. Now, if you would have listened to me and Tommy Ahlquist, we'd have solutions, but that's that's another story.
You've got well, I'd love to hear those. That's good.
Well, we've got a lot of solutions for how things are going.
Good.
Tommy and myself, we're working together on that.
I like it.
Right.
I like it.
Maybe we would have you join our team.
Oh, hey,
Team Tommy.
I'd love to hear your guys' solutions.
Well,
this is awesome.
We'll work on that. I'll have to put in a good word for you.
I hope you do.
So we go back to the growth, though. That is a big issue.
Huge.
I mean, the roads, the infrastructures people are building. As I said, we do a podcast together, Tommy Ahlquist and I, Inspire Excellence, and we talked to the mayors, and they were yapping about impact fees. Nampa's impact fees are going up.
Mm-hmm.
What was it for a 10,000 square foot building? $120,000 in impact fees.
Yeah.
Tommy was telling me about that for BVA, his new company. That's a lot of money, but we're in like a catch-up mode, though. So, I mean,
that's not very much money. Think about how much that will actually pave, or how much of a road, or how much land it'll buy around a road. Next to nothing, right?
Right, but then you go back to the referendum or the levy or the bond or whatever you want to call it in the last election cycle that ACHD put up, that you could vote to raise your registration fees and it would go to the roads. But then they put in there that you couldn't raise the fees on trucks or vehicles more than 8,000 pounds. Now, look, my little Subaru Forester Toyota Camry does not tear up the roads.
Yes.
And we love the truck drivers. We love people that do it for a living. But, there's the balance.
Yeah. No, it's tough. That's what I'm saying. You're saying I'm a tax. I'm looking for
You're a tax and spender?
Tax and spender, right? And the answer is impact fees are nothing different than a tax. That's exactly what they are. Impact fees are a tax. You can call it whatever you want, but it's a user tax, if you will. We're going to use this land, build density here. Therefore, you're going to have to widen the streets. That's what that's for. And you're going to need to bring more sewer. You're going to need to bring more utility. All of those things that are expensive and difficult. But that's what I'm saying. We have got to have very good solutions, and some of them, unfortunately, are going to be, how do we raise revenue? How do we tax it? And how do we tax it correctly? How do we tax the user?
Right.
Correctly. That's a tough choice.
Sure.
And that's why we're saying,
with an
electric car, they're not paying for the roads.
Sure, but if you want to buy a house, are you going to pay $10,000 extra in impact fees? Is that fair?
You are. You already are.
More with Dave Petzo next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Dave Petzo with us, the Petzo Center, Petzo Financial. So you're saying people are already paying for new houses?
Yeah, they are. And also think about that on your property taxes. They don't go up, or just
they don't
because
go down.
I'm saying they don't go up just because of the value of the house. You look at the mill rates,
right?
I mean, it's just and you never hear about schools that are being planned ahead. They're always just out of money. We always don't have enough money.
Now you're sounding like Mayor Tammy in Meridian, who takes issue with how we fund the schools.
I do too.
Right, because
good for her.
It's all on the local municipalities.
Yep. Every
year, sometimes twice a year, we have these levies and bonds. Now, from the state government perspective, we can argue at KIDO Talk Radio, we spend it's at least 60% of our general fund budget on education.
Exactly. It's absurd.
Yeah. And here's the other one. Not a lot of people say we have too much top-heavy, folks, but hey, let's say you streamline everything. I don't know if it's going to make it better.
Right. Education is the only thing that we do the same way we did 100 years ago, only we do it worse because we got more bureaucrats in it. So yes, we're top heavy compared to what we used to be, but at the same time, with the attorneys out there deciding you can spank or you can't spank, and we got to sue this, and you can't get rid of a teacher, I don't know who the boss in the school is. Because the reality is a principal can't decide he's going to fire a teacher, not without the union cracking down and deciding the teacher has tenure or can't be fired. It's a very difficult thing to get control locally, meaning at each individual school. So, Kevin, I'm not an expert on it. I just think that we have to stop doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
That's the definition of insanity. Let's take a look at some of the social media giants making luxury a necessity. The government looking at going after Amazon, Silicon Valley. I have a friend of mine who lives near that, and he said, you wouldn't believe the buildings and everything else. It's something you can't even describe.
Yeah, I would love to go see the Apple headquarters just to see this monstrosity. But you're right. There is so much money in Silicon Valley; it's absolutely absurd. And now it's going to be hitting New York, and it's going to become even busier. It wasn't that long ago I was in New York and trying to get off of Manhattan to the airport. And I'm telling you what.
You were in the financial district?
I was.
Right.
Yes. Actually, no, I was in Upper Manhattan, so at the J.P. Morgan building. Oh. They're in Upper Manhattan. But anyway, for those that know the area. Anyway, the point is I was trying to get out of there, and you can't. It's just, the traffic is just unbelievable.
I've been to Upper,
it's going to get worse.
I've been to Upper Star, but never Upper Manhattan.
Yep.
But it does come back to just how influential they should be. Facebook took a beating last year. Apple took a beating because the Chinese aren't buying their phones.
Yeah, they're getting beat up. Yeah, exactly.
So, have we jumped the shark? See, to me, and again, we could call this the analog generation.
Right.
GM built things.
Right.
Facebook didn't really build something. It's on a digital platform.
Yep.
And yet, anyone would love to have the valuation of Facebook.
Correct. And yes, you're right. And everything in the smartphones and all of the all of their apps that they do now. These are amazing things. And I agree with you, Kevin. It's an interesting thing, and we're seeing, as we know, there's a shortage of people in the trades now, right? Because there's still work to do out there.
Right.
There's still work, plumbing and welding and things like that. And so there's a shortage of people out there that aren't just, people can make a really good living now by making stuff and repairing things, not just by creating apps. And that's so we're still seeing that. But Kevin, we can't stop using computers. I think of, for example, at our office, for the amount of let's call it assets under management, okay, and number of clients that we have. 20 years ago would have taken 3 times the number of people that we have now.
Well, you would have employed more people. That would have been good. You would have been less efficient. I'm all about that.
We would have been a lot less efficient.
Sure.
And we probably just would shrink down and not have as many clients or people that we could take care of. And so there are, because of technology, we can trade hundreds of accounts at one time. We can do all those things that you couldn't do before, and you can do so much more. You can reach so many more people, and we can communicate with them in a better way, more quickly than sending out snail mail messages from time to time. It's a different ball game, yes, but it is going to keep being different. And I don't know if we're going to, you can't roll the clock back. We did make things. We're still going to make things, but we're going to do it more efficiently with less human beings and more technology.
More with Dave Petzo next. Traffic and weather together, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. With us once again, Dave Petzo, Kevin Miller here, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. So, back to this issue about the trades. You've always been a big fan of the trades.
I am, yeah.
And yet, the trades don't get the love that, the people with their laptops sitting at the Starbucks contemplating some philosophical question do.
Yeah. You know why, Kevin? I think because I love real people. I like real, hard-working people.
You're saying people in the coffee shops aren't real?
I think they're real, but I don't find them quite as interesting. I think that as I go to places like Seattle to go see my grandkids and things like that, I just don't find that as interesting a group of people. I find people that are out working hard, trying to make a buck, hustle up jobs, and I just love the skill that they have. I mean, it's like, we went through a big remodel on my house, right? And so it takes forever to find good tradesmen.
Did you put in a new West Wing or something like that?
We basically did, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I basically tore down the old place because it was built in 51.
Put a rotunda in, I heard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the bones are about the same, but it was old, and so 1951 is old. And you start tearing down walls, you're going to find a lot of stuff. We did, but anyway, my point is that I couldn't help but just be blown away by the wood floor guy, who loved his job, was the nicest guy, young guy, probably in his 20s still, and was super nice guy, but what skill he had. I couldn't tell where the new wood and the old wood were. I seriously can't. From 1951, you can't tell. It looks perfect.
The wood guy.
The wood floor guy.
Oh, the wood floor guy. All right.
Yes. I mean, I'm just saying, I just admire the craftsmanship. The guy that put the shower in, I mean, in the tile. They take their work seriously, and I love that. It's like they feel like they're artists, and they are.
Well, they're artists, and, hopefully the trades will continue on, and I know you're a big proponent. You have a lot of people that have made a lot of money in the trades.
You do,
yeah.
And I love it. I love it when we're busy here. And I know most people. And here's what is difficult and hard for people is that it's two different things. You can be a great craftsman and have no idea why in a booming time you're running out of money. It's two different skill sets. It's very fortunate if you happen to love what you do, whether it's a profession or not, and you run a good business. That's a really rare thing. Most people don't have those skills. That's why the people that run the plumbing companies and things like that aren't out there turning a wrench anymore. They're running the company. It's a business. And it's two different skill sets. So I do encourage people to be very careful about setting out on their own and knowing what their skill set is, because you can make good money in the trades, just do good work and stay there, put money away. But when you go out on your own, you're going to run into a lot of other expenses that you may not have counted on.
Finally, big prediction for the year?
Kevin, we are in a good economic boom. I think the volatility will settle down. I think this is a correction, and my big prediction is we will get a trade deal sooner than later with China. The Federal Reserve will back off a little bit, and the stock market will be up 20% this year. How about
20%?
That? How about that?
All right, we're going to save this. Dave Pezzo, as always, we appreciate
I'm usually embarrassed by my predictions, so you can save it. It's okay. I'm used to it.
You're in good company. The Pezzo Center, Pezzo Financial. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a great day.
You too. More news next. Fox News, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.